Hey everyone! So I went online this morning and took your dragon quiz. If you haven't taken Daniel's new dragon quiz, it's really lots of fun and very revealing. So tell them where they can find that.
KnowYourDragons.com. It's causing quite a stir.
Yes. So apparently I am the model for basically almost all the dragons. So I had 10 of the dragons.
There's 13.
I had 10 out of 13.
Dragons from the past that are still breathing fire on your emotional brain. I have 4 of them.
So it does not mean you are damaged, but you might be wounded, right? From these dragons that are breathing fire on you from the past. So apparently I am going to be your model for today. The wounded dragon.
So here it is. The wounded dragon.
So let's show the people on, social media. The little wounded dragon. He's really cute, but really sad.
And that's the dragon that was born out of trauma. So when you had the near drowning episode when you were 2, when you were left at home alone and you couldn't find anybody and had to dial 911.
No, I called zero, but
called zero. When your uncle was murdered, when you were assaulted,
right.
When you were
when you put it like that,
molested.
When you put it like that.
Someone says like dragon tales for grown people.
Right,
yes,
exactly. It's like we're doing instead of how to train your dragon, we're going to do how to tame your dragons. So.
People say they're having trouble seeing it, so let's see if I can put it up. Wounded dragon. The arrows. And, almost everybody has had
some wounds,
trauma
right?
at some point, but sometimes it comes and sticks around. So in each of the dragons, we talk about their origin story or how they were born. And for this dragon, is you experience some trauma, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse.
I just really quick. You got me this for Christmas.
I did. It's a dragon.
It's a little it's a dragon. It's so beautiful, but it's a dragon. So he got me that. So apparently he's trying to tell me. See, just to show people. See my dragon. So it's just to remind me.
They're also born out of intense stress, such as being in a fire, or flood, or being assaulted, or being in an earthquake. So those of us that live here in Southern California, I've actually was in the 1970 earthquake.
But on the East Coast there's hurricanes and there's tornadoes in Texas.
But I remember the earthquake. I think I was 16 or 17, and I was 16, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning. The house is shaking like crazy because we were not very far from the epicenter.
Right.
And my sisters, I have 5 sisters, they're all screaming. And
that was probably more traumatic than the earthquake.
And my dad comes out and goes, "Don't worry, it's just an earthquake." And the screaming got louder. And then the next time, it was the 1989 quake up in the Bay Area. I was doing a family therapy session, and this couple is yelling at each other in my office. And then the building starts to shake. And I'm like, you people need to settle down. The wounded dragon can also start if you've been bullied or you've been teased. And you were bullied in high school, where people started talking about you doing trashy things when you weren't.
Right.
And that must have been just horrible.
It was painful
for you.
Yeah.
So what triggers this dragon to breathe fire on your emotional brain? Any past trauma reminders. So smells, sights, sounds, anniversaries of the accident, death, divorce, breakup, being fired,
so sort of anything,
and music.
So sort of anything that reminds you of or triggers you to feel, again, unsafe, or like the world is not a safe place. It triggers you about that feeling that you felt when the world was not a safe place.
Yeah, and you actually write a lot about the wounded dragon. not using that metaphor in your book.
No,
The
it's
Relentless
fun because our new
Courage.
PBS show is about both of our books. Because yours is obviously the self-help, identifying your dragons, what to do for your dragons, their origins. Mine is, as I said, I have 10 of them. Mine is the actual, like, this is what happens to a person who has these dragons.
You have to look it so people can see it.
So this is
Out
what happens.
now, great reviews, 4.9 out of 5 stars on Amazon. If you've gotten the book, please leave a review.
Thanks,
I think would be great. But coming February 27th, nationwide, our 15th public television special, Overcoming Anxiety, Depression, Trauma, and Grief. So check your local public television stations, and if you don't see it, call them and go, hey, why are you not playing Dr. Amen and Tana's new
I think
show?
this is one of my favorites, just because it's so practical for people. I mean, of course, I loved when we did food too, but this is the first time I think I've risked talking about my life, and for us to do this sort of together was really cool.
All right, so how does the wounded dragon cause people to react? Well, they relive the trauma. Sometimes they can have flashbacks, nightmares. They can feel numb. They begin to avoid any situations that remind them of the trauma. They can startle easily, feel their future is shortened, and it just seems like they're always watching for bad things to happen.
They're always watching for bad things to happen. I think a lot of people do that who have been in these situations. I remember when you tried to get me to work on this positivity bias thing, where you notice happy faces more than you notice scary faces. And I'm like, why the heck would I want to do that? The scary faces are the ones I'm worried about. Like, why would I want to do that? That makes no sense in my brain. Because you're always waiting for that thing to happen. And I know for some people, they'll avoid situations that are scary to them or that trigger them. But there are some people who are like me, where it's like, if it scares you, you're going to run into it. You're going to run into that fire because you want to test yourself, or you want to train yourself, or you want to be prepared for the worst. Like, I'm always prepared for the worst, right? So there are some people like that. So like where I practice karate and I'm always prepared for disasters, and I'm always, like, some people will go to that extreme because they don't want to be caught off guard. Like, I know I don't want to be caught off guard. So if you've ever been caught off guard, you don't want to be caught off guard.
Right, that it traumatized you and got your nervous system to work too hard. And so now you're always watching for things. So I promised in the headline, 6 ways to tame the wounded dragon.
Mm-hmm.
The first way is to look for post-traumatic growth. That, yes, a lot of people have experienced trauma, but it has also triggered greatness.
Right.
And it's only because Lincoln suffered with actually very severe depression that he knew how to suffer so he could lead during the Civil War, during our country's darkest days.
And you don't have to be president, thank God. Something as simple as writing your story is post-traumatic growth. Or getting therapy so you can be a better parent. That's post-traumatic growth.
Let's say, because another one too is writing the story of what happened, but not from a child's perspective. Writing the story from an adult's perspective. And when you wrote The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child, in large part it was therapeutic for you.
Very therapeutic. And helped me reprocess it as an adult, because when you experience it as a child, which is way bigger, way scarier, way more traumatic. As an adult with more skill, I've gotten more training, more help, more strategies. I have now been able to reprocess that as an adult. And also, by the way, I've been able to interview people and get a more well-rounded picture.
And so
there's more forgiveness.
One of the main themes in The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child is it's easy to call people bad. It's harder to ask why.
Behavior's complicated.
And so one of the sort of main villains in the book, your uncle who is a heroin addict, well, when you really understood his whole story, he also becomes one of the heroes.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. It's a full circle moment. He becomes one of my mentors. And that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. So post-traumatic growth, what did you learn? that's good that you can take out of it? Did you have some spiritual ahas? Did you see new possibilities and appreciation of life? Did you relate to other people better? Rewriting your story from an adult perspective, this is so helpful. 3, EMDR.
So helpful.
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Let me just be really clear about this. It's the smart person who goes and gets help. It's not the weak person. When we first met, I just loved her. I mean, you can see she's beautiful. She's smart. She's caring. She has just such a wonderful, sweet soul. But she had experienced trauma. So one of my first gifts for her, I know it's completely weird, but I'm a psychiatrist.
Only a psychiatrist will give therapy.
Gave her 10 sessions of EMDR. I wanted to sort of like clean out the trauma closet. And I thought it was
ridiculous. I did not want to do therapy. Wasn't going to go listen to a bunch of psychobabble. Was very hard charging ICU nurse. I'm fine. Fouled up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. But I'm fine. But it turned out to be the best thing I ever did for myself. That you did for me.
There's bridging techniques, so that's 4. I explain them in your brain is always listening, so super simple. What are you thinking and feeling? Go back to the first time you were having those thoughts or feelings. It's so quick, but so powerful to realize you can separate now from before, right? Is this now or is it before? And so I talk about disconnecting the bridges from the past. 5, there's a technique called havening that I write about in the book. When you feel trauma, stimulate both hemispheres while you think about the trauma. Initially, the anxiety goes up, but then it goes down. You can learn more about havening. And sometimes even having a weighted blanket can be very helpful.
They do that for dogs that are anxious.
For past trauma.
Yeah.
Just to get some extra pressure on your skin. I'm also a fan of acupuncture because sometimes energy gets stuck and acupuncture helps to release.
Well, I think that's why I've always liked chiropractics because it just feels like, just everything lets go.
So people who have had trauma, in the book, your brain is always listening. I actually have which movies each of the dragons likes to watch. And they're drawn to movies about healing. So Wounded Dragons generally love Good Will Hunting.
Yes, such
or
a good movie.
A Beautiful Mind. The Lion King is totally about trauma. Ray, or one of my favorite all-time movies ever, As Good as It Gets, with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt.
I would add to that, like something like Soul Surfer even. Gosh, she was just so powerful. It was such a good story.
And then each of the dragons, to tame them, you need meditations or affirmations. And the Wounded Dragon's affirmations: I am safe in this moment. I have everything I need in this moment. That was then, this is now. Separation. I release trauma, turmoil, and grief. And asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
So I love to answer your questions. I'm looking at all these great comments coming in. I can't read very well from this distance and without my glasses. Please go after this is posted on our Instagram and Facebook and ask questions. I'll comment back when we have a little more, one-on-one time to do that.
That's so many great questions.
I love this.
And we're going to continue talking about dragons. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the should and shaming dragon. It's so common. There's so many cultures where that dragon just breathes fire.
And if you've experienced a lot of trauma in the past, the should and shaming, I don't know about the shaming, but the should, this idea that you need to control your environment because it was unsafe. It's like, I know there are so many times where I feel like, okay, you should do this, I should do this, we should do this, because it needs to feel safe. And so it needs to feel controlled. So when things start to feel out of control for me, that's when that gets triggered big time. So we'll talk about, you know, all of that. Like, why do people get triggered with that should and shaming, and you know, how do we manage that?
So more dragon taming to come. Hope you have a safe, happy
Wonderful weekend.